This video will help you all remember, hopefully, how to convert a fraction to a decimal, or a decimal to fraction, or a decimal to a percent, or a percent to a decimal, or even a fraction directly to a percent, or a percent directly back to a fraction. Okay, so the first thing we're going to convert is fraction to decimal. Okay, we're not going to worry about percent yet. We're just going fraction to decimal. Okay, if our fraction is 1/2 and we want to convert 1/2 to a decimal, there's two things you can do. You can either type 1 divided by 2 in the calculator, if you're allowed to use it, and get your decimal, or you can write it out on paper and do it the long way. Which, I mean, in this case, it won't be that long since it's a pretty simple fraction. So if we divide, now be careful, this says 1 divided by 2, okay? So make sure that you are setting up your division problem properly. Okay, so keep in mind that our numerator will always be inside of our bracket, okay? Our dividend and our divisor will always be on the outside, okay? Our denominator will always be on the outside, which is called our divisor. In this case, it's a 2. So as long as you remember how to set it up properly, it should be a quick problem for you, okay? We should remember that because it's a small number, 1 smaller than 2, you have to add a decimal. Pop it up in your answer right away so you don't forget about it. And then finish the problem. It goes in 5 times. 2 goes in 10 5 times. So your answer will be 0.5, okay? So 1/2 is the same thing, or is equivalent to the decimal of 0.5. Now, if you type this in the calculator, I'm going to make sure you understand the correct way of typing it in. It would be 1 divided by 2. Okay, make sure you're typing it in exactly like that. Okay, the 1 division sign 2. Okay, now that we've established the decimal version of 1/2, we're going to find the percent of 1/2, or 0.5, okay? By the way, we pronounce this 5/10 because this is the tenths place. Okay, so how do we turn a decimal to a percent? Well, in class, we remember, hopefully, that this decimal right here is to be moved right twice or left twice. Okay, our little tongue twister, right twice, left twice, right twice, left twice. If we understand that we're moving from decimal to the right to a percent, then that should tell us that we're moving our decimal to the right twice. Why twice? Well, because percents are out of 100. So moving our decimal twice is the same thing as taking 0.5 and multiplying it by 100, which in both cases should give us 50%. Okay? Now, it's important to understand that 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10, or 0.5, is equivalent to 50%. All of these equal the same value. Which one do we use? Well, it depends on what you'll need in the problem that you're working on. If you're working with fractions, of course you'd want to use him. If you're working with decimals, this guy. And if you're working with percents, of course you want to stick with the percent version of this number that we're working with. Most of the time you'll need either one of these two, though. Lastly, if you want to convert all the way from a fraction, skip over decimal, straight to a percent, so fraction, and I want the percent version of that fraction I may ask for, you will unfortunately need to convert it to a decimal first, and then finally to a percent, using the way we learned. take your decimal, multiply by 100, or just move it right twice, and you'll have your percent. If you want to convert backwards from percent to decimal, or from decimal to fraction, or from even percent to fraction, pretty similar to what we just did, but we're going the opposite way. So we're going to start with the percent. Let's just say, I don't know, 20%. Okay. If we have 20% and we want to convert 20% to a decimal, the very first thing you want to remember, hopefully, is where is my decimal in this percent? Well, right here. Okay, don't forget. As soon as you're going to convert from a percent and you don't want to deal with percent anymore, pop your decimal in right away and get rid of the percent sign. Okay, so we're just going to get rid of this guy. And pop our decimal in. Now, remember what we did before, our tongue twister. Okay, when we're moving from percent to decimal or decimal to percent, remember you're moving your decimal either left twice or right twice. In this case, since we're going to percent to decimal over here, we're going in this direction is left. So we're going to move our decimal left twice. Once, twice, and pop him in right there. And that should give us 0.20, or if you'd like to, I like to put the decimal always in front, or the 0 in front of the decimal, 0.20. Or you can say 20 hundredths, or some of us like to just drop off the 0 and say 2/10. Either way, it's the same thing. 0.20 and 0.2. Both equivalent to 20%, what we had originally. Okay. Now, if we're going from decimal to fraction, all you need to do is read the decimal out loud. If you're really good at reading decimals and knowing your place value, you should have a very easy time with this. In this case, we will look at the top one. Okay, this is read as 0.20 or 20 hundredths because the 0 is in our hundredths spot here. Okay, if you forget that and you remember that you can convert it, or you can rewrite 0.20 as 0.2, same thing, drop off the 0. You can say 2/10 because he's in our 10th spot, okay? Like I said, either one, it's the same thing, either or. 20 hundredths is the same thing as 2/10, okay? You can easily see for yourself, okay? If you simplified 20 hundredths by dividing by 10, you will get 2/10. Now with math, what I like best is you can really approach this any way you guys want. Okay, you can leave it as 20 hundredths, 2/10, either one, but you have to always, always, always remember that whatever fraction you decide to convert to, it has to be your final answer in lowest terms, okay? So neither 20 hundredths or 2/10 are in lowest terms or simplified as far as it can be simplified. So if we take the problem we were working on earlier and we just divide one more time by 2, we will get the fully simplified fraction. Now this is the answer I'll be looking for. These two answers here, 20 hundredths or 2/10, they're not incorrect, but they're not fully simplified like this guy. Okay, so really we want him to be in our final answer, okay? Okay, so make sure that we understand that 1/5 is the same thing or equivalent to 0.2 or 0.20, as well as equivalent to 20%. Okay, All of these numbers are equivalent to each other. Okay, like I said earlier, it does not matter which format of the number you use, but most of the time you'll be using either fraction or decimal. Okay, if you're working with fractions, use this. If you're working with decimals, leave it as this. If for some reason you need to convert from a percent all the way back to a fraction, okay, you have to unfortunately go from percent to decimal first and then decimal to fraction. You can't skip from percent all the way to fraction without going through this step first, okay? So take your percent, move it left twice, your decimal left twice, and then say it out loud and write your fraction, and then simplify, okay?